Hey everybody, let me know if you are picking this up. We are live on Facebook and on YouTube. This is going to be our last campaign pub crawl event as a part of the Ryan Lucas for Colorado campaign. Hopefully we'll get some people in here. We can talk a little bit about what happened, what went well, what did not go well. Talk about what we're going to do next, because I think that that's going to be really important. Um, the campaign certainly was a massive success in a lot of ways. Um, we were able to reach 17% of El Paso County's convention, which is uh, a huge coup for people who are involved in this campaign. We were really excited to reach that number. Unfortunately, our original plan of being able to collect petitions, and therefore only needing 10% of the delegate vote, got waylaid by COVID-19, as well as storms. So we weren't quite able to reach the threshold that we needed after we weren't able to collect petition signatures. So we had to reach 30% of CD5's delegates. So just as an example, there were about 450 people who showed up for the El Paso County convention. Those voters converted over to 323 delegates, which is by far the largest portion of delegates going into CD5. Of the 323 delegates, we received, I believe it was 67. Hold on, let me make sure that's the correct number. No, sorry, 58 delegates. Jillian Freeland won 265 of the El Paso County delegates. So what that roughly translates to is that we were able to get about 17% of El Paso County. And with that being the largest delegate total, making it to the CD5 assembly was just not going to be a realistic endeavor. If we were in a situation where a candidate might have converted additional delegates. So, for example, in the Senate race, John Hickenlooper was doing both processes, the convention process as well as the petition collection process. When Hickenlooper left, that left a lot of delegates that were not slated for a particular candidate. We didn't have that situation in CD5. So really it was going to end up being Jillian and I. And unfortunately, there was no way to expect that we were going to suddenly pick up 13% out of her delegates. So for those of you who are interested in the inside baseball of this whole thing, it didn't make sense for us to try to recapture the additional 13% for us to try to make the ballot. It certainly was a tough decision to make, but it was the right decision because ultimately, at this point, we need to be doing everything that we can to support party unity as we go forward against Doug Lamborn, which is why, as I've said from the very beginning, that I would support whatever Democrat ended up coming out of the process. And unfortunately, that wasn't our campaign. There was no reasonable way that we could expect that we would be able to go that route, which means, Jillian has my full-throated support as we go forward because Doug Lamborn, as we've said in this campaign, is not the type of representative that El Paso County needs, that Park County needs, that Chaffee County needs, that Fremont County needs, that Teller County needs. So it was the right move for us to step aside, even though we had made massive steps in the direction that we needed to. It ultimately just simply fell a little bit short for us to be able to continue to fight for ballot access. So with that out of the way, this is a campaign pub crawl event. So we are toasting. You have a beer there. Feel free to toast. for everybody who was involved in this campaign, I can't thank you enough. It was an incredible opportunity to meet so many people in the district and to have such amazing people by our side as we did. So I can't um, I can't thank Miguel enough. He really jumped onto this campaign both feet first. He was right there by my side through every single decision, um, every trip out to the other counties besides El Paso County and in the district. He was there for our first event on January 21st when we launched our petition um, process. He collected signatures throughout the district. He was uh, the best thing that I could have had in this campaign with helping me with day-to-day activities. I can't thank him enough. I will throw out a quick shout out to Benjamin J. Wood, who and it has to be the best story that I have on social media, and I've got quite a few great stories. But when Miguel and I were talking about the video that we put out for Assembly, we we had kind of talked about a couple of different options for music to put in the background, and he had mentioned Bob Dylan, and I immediately had this uh, memory of the end of season 3 of Battlestar Galactica, which included a cover of All Along the Watchtower, and whether that's the Bob Dylan version or the well, really any other version. Bob Dylan's version is definitely on its own. But when we were talking about what we might want to do, it reminded me of that triumphant moment when um, a major character comes back into the show, um, and how it was a rallying cry for um, their war against the Cylons, and not to get too nerdy about it, but it was such an incredibly powerful composition of that song. And I was originally thinking, well, that would be such a great song. And for me personally, I would get a lot out of it, and the song itself to me has always been a very somber song, even though it's usually been sung at a much more up tempo pace. But I've always found it to be a very somber song in terms of its lyrics. So after doing some research and kind of digging around, we found this composition by Benjamin J. Wood that was just profound. I mean, it was just an incredible version of the song. Um, with the added benefit of not having the lyrics included, but just the soundtrack and just the music, which was perfect for a soundtrack for a video. So I reached out to the composer, and we were sending direct messages through Twitter, and set up an agreement and got licensing to use that song. It was one of the fastest negotiations that I've ever been a part of. Not the fastest, but pretty close to the fastest. And I just have to, tell him how much I appreciate that he was willing to be so supportive and so quick and responsive in helping us to be able to put that as the soundtrack for our assembly video, which I hope that people really enjoyed. We didn't want to um, limit ourselves to the man on the camera sort of interview or woman on the camera sort of interview. We wanted something that was a little bit more um, hopefully emotionally powerful, and that's what we were going for. So love to hear what you guys think about whether or not that was communicated. We were successful in that. I know that Miguel is going to try and join this, help us with debriefing, but I just wanted to say a huge thank you as well to all of the supporters, everybody who was engaged in this campaign. We received so many amazing um, messages from people and notes from people. This campaign was around for less than 3 months. I mean, and in that time, we got messages like I got an email right after that video came out where somebody had sent me an email and said, I've been a Democrat my entire life. It's been 30 years since I've heard a Democrat use the word listening. Um, to the people in Hartselle that met me in a bar for a beer and for our only real campaign pub crawl event that wasn't a virtual campaign pub crawl event, but a real campaign pub crawl event. Um, that with their starting off with a side eye that a Democrat would show up and talk to them about issues, and then by the end of the night, the owner of the bar, with her arm around me saying, oh, you want to stay away from this person. They're going to be really aggressive. We don't want that for you. We want to make sure that, you're okay. And that's the sort of, um, the impact that we wanted to have as a campaign. And I think that in that I think we did exactly what we wanted to. We got messages, after announcing that we were going to shut down the campaign that they were really sad to hear that because they felt like we were the campaign that, um, had the same values as them. And a lot of people have said, we understand you have to give up on this particular election, but don't give up entirely. You need to come back. We'll certainly look into that. I think, this has been a learning experience. And as many of you know, from my experience, I've worked on a lot of campaigns in my life. Being a candidate is a totally different experience. Um, there's a certain emotional element to the campaign that's quite a bit different than being one of the staffers on a campaign. And I wouldn't change most things about the last 3 months. Um, it was an exceptional experience, and being able to meet so many people, supporters and non-supporters, and just people that wanted to talk about what they're looking for from their representative. It was an incredibly powerful and moving experience. Um, so I've certainly enjoyed the last 3 months, but I think more importantly, we want to talk about um, what we need to do going forward. So um, this will be my last live stream through this account and through Facebook and through YouTube. Oh, Miguel just joined. I'm going to see if I can add him. Let's see if he's ready to join. Hey, Miguel, can you hear me?
Hey, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I can totally hear you. This is nice because I haven't gotten any kind of feedback, so I didn't even know if I was running. So,
Yeah, you're running.
So, well, we talked about a lot of different things, Miguel, and you can go back and watch it later on. I gushed about you for a while. But we were just talking about what's next for this campaign. What do we want to do going forward? This campaign pub crawl event is going to end at 8:30 because I'm going to be jumping on a Move Humanity Forward call. So for those of you who don't know, Move Humanity Forward is Andrew Yang's organization, non-electoral organization. They're focused on trying to solve some of these 21st century problems, same problems that we had talked about on our campaign, with similar mechanisms that we had talked about on our campaign, and with a similar spirit. So, I'm looking at what his organization has done in terms of their transition. And I think that we're going to do a very similar thing with this campaign. I mean, we spent every single dollar that we collected in terms of contributions. I spent a good portion of today just going through and preparing finances for our quarterly report, which is due on April 15th. I'm happy to report that that our bank balance is basically a $0 balance, and we were very judicious in our spending, which I think was a good thing. Um, but ultimately, we spent every contribution dollar that came in. Um, Kelly and I ended up taking on quite a bit of debt to keep this campaign supported. It was about as much as we received in contributions, pretty close. So we were about 50-50 between our supporters and what Kelly and I put into this campaign. Um, and again, I wouldn't trade the last 3 months. I wouldn't trade those dollars. I wouldn't trade our effort as a campaign for anything. I think we did a lot of really good things, and I think we want to keep that momentum going. So I think our plan for the next steps, part of us setting up this campaign was to establish a nonprofit organization. We'll likely be spinning off that nonprofit at this point to focus on consensus candidates, right? So candidates that um, are open to crossing party lines um, in considerable ways, not just paying lip service to crossing party lines, but really wanting to meet voters where they are and being willing to consider combining their personal viewpoint on things with their voters. As, in terms of what that'll end up looking like long term. I don't know that we have an answer to that question yet, right? Funding is going to be a question, certainly, but Miguel, why don't you throw? I don't know if you have any words of wisdom or insight into how this campaign went the last 2 months, but I'll throw it to you.
Well, thanks. I love being Johnny on the spot.
You're welcome.
I obviously I believed in this campaign. I would not have done what I did or put the time that I did and made the decisions that I did to support you if I did not believe in the campaign. Colorado Springs itself, as you know, I had a business here in the Springs. It's a different town, and people need to be adjusted and become comfortable with individuals. I don't think there was enough time for people to hear your voice. I think had that been heard for a longer period of time, there would have been a largely different outcome in this race and everything that's going on. And really, the sad part is when we need change, the most people run to what they know, when maybe they should run for things that are different so that we can bring that change. And I wish people really would have grasped that concept with your campaign, that it's not the same old rhetoric. It's not, I'm all blue, I'm all red. It's, let's just be practical, put everything aside, and figure out a real solution to the problems that we face. And I wish that would have gotten out more. I mean, we have the largest amount of unaffiliated voters, I believe, in Colorado out of any county, if I'm correct. I don't know. You might correct me on that.
No, I think that's actually probably correct.
Yeah. So people are looking for something different. We can't be the same old norm and continue this fight. Like, there's a need for change. where do we find that change?
Mhm.
And unless we take personal responsibility, each and every individual one of us, then, you really don't have the right to complain. So that's what I would say. I'm really concerned as to the future of what is going to unfold, especially in the crisis situation that we're in. Fear mongering is a real
Mhm.
thing, and people want to feel safe. Unfortunately, I guess the biggest example I could say is like if you go back to FDR, when we were at its worst, he presented change and people grasped onto that change. And it was a bipartisan change. And it was something that used the tax dollars and put people to work and listened to the voices of what people needed. I mean, the Dust Bowl was completely revamped, everything, those things that we went through as a nation. So, not that we're in that exact situation right now, but the time for change is now. And we need people who are willing to create that change. So, for everyone out there, whoever's listening, the only thing I would really say is the things that affect us are not Republican or Democratic, and our solutions are not Republican or Democratic. They need to be practical. And that's what we were trying to accomplish.
Here, here. Do you have it's a campaign pub crawl event. Do you not have a drink?
I have a water
Okay.
bottle.
No, you can't cheers water. That's terrible. That's bad luck.
I don't have any beer in the house right now.
Oh my god. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a very extroverted person. So when Kelly tonight was working on a brisket and she was like, I need red wine vinegar. I forgot that we don't have any. I was like, I will go to the store right now. Let me just go. Anything else we need? So I also picked up 2 12 packs of Dales, which is my go-to beer. So I've got additional stocks there. Miguel, you live just down the street. You're more than welcome to come by and grab some beer if you want to grab some beer.
Thanks.
I think that's considered essential travel. Since the liquor stores are considered essential businesses, I think you traveling to pick up some beer, you're more than welcome to pick some up.
Well, I admit I've been doing deliveries and things like that. So it's just a little part, but it's actually a little crazy how many people are stuck in their homes right now, and
Mm-hmm.
especially how many elderly people that are afraid to go out. They're physically afraid to go to the grocery store because they have health issues, they have different things, and they're calling in for deliveries and things like that. So it's, I mean, in the words of Bob Dylan, the times they are changing.
We were talking about Bob Dylan earlier. You weren't on the meeting yet, but we were talking about the fact that where All Along the Watchtower came from and why it ended up being our campaign theme song for our assembly video. So yeah, you know, I think you're right, Miguel. I think that there are opportunities here right now and into the future that had we had more time, had we been able to connect with more people, we would have had a real shot. And some of these counties that we met in met with people in Florizen and met with people in Guffey and I collected signatures in every single county before we ended up canceling our petition program out of concern for our volunteers that have they themselves have diabetes, or they have family members with diabetes, or pulmonary fibrosis, or you know, potentially still had to go to work where they may be potentially impacting other people that had, health considerations that needed protecting. That, even still, we managed to go out to all of the counties. We spent time in all of those counties, not just El Paso County, and I think that our message resonated with a lot of people. Not enough people, right? And I think that's going to be one of those questions that we're going to have to figure out. If there's a version 2.0 of anything with this, is what that looks like going forward. Because, certainly I've been a Democrat my entire life. Almost everybody who was involved in this campaign, that was not the case. We brought in a lot of people who were Republicans, former Republicans, a lot of unaffiliated voters that believed that a Democrat could potentially represent them. And I think that was a message that resonated with those individuals. And we just unfortunately didn't have a chance to get that message, beyond the Democratic Party. So we're going to have to figure out, I think, if there is another version of this, or what this looks like going forward. What utility there is for a campaign like that that comes out of the party itself.
So let me ask you this, Ryan, and I'm putting you on the spot now. So
it should be awesome.
The difference between the Democratic Party and their approach with caucus and everything versus the Republican Party. How do you think that played out in this affair? Do you think it's more of a fair deal? There was a motion presented that I saw that, like some other states have, that people who are willing to run should be able to run. Do you think that something like that would have made a difference in our campaign?
No, I don't think it would have made it. I think that the rules, look, all systems have rules, and you play by the rules. And in our campaign, we enforced a rule on ourselves that ended this campaign. So, if we wanted to, we could run independently. If we could start that process in 3 weeks. Right? There's nothing that stops us from doing that. I could run as an independent candidate for CD5. I could go through the petition process to do so, because you can't be nominated by a party if you're an independent candidate. But we could collect the signatures starting, I think the day for the day when they start collecting signatures is like April 17th or so. You have roughly 2 months to go through that process. And then there is no primary. So you start into the general as soon as you've gotten the signatures to be on the general ballot, which is why the independent candidates who are not going through a primary process starts much later for signature collection, which is bullshit, frankly, because, you and I were collecting signatures, Charlie and Steve and April and Maddie and Kelly, and we were all trying to collect signatures in 10 to 15 degree temperatures, and the independent candidate gets to start in April when it's relatively beautiful outside for a good portion of the time. So neither here nor there, we could still run. We imposed our own limitation when we said that we would support whatever Democrat ends up coming out of the process. So because I made that promise, we cannot run as an independent campaign. So I don't know that it's necessarily a good or bad. I think it's just you play within the rules that you have, and those are the rules that them's the rules that we're playing with. You know, when I first met with Jillian, we said we are going to support whatever candidate comes out of this, and that was the end of the game. I'm not going to run as an independent candidate in this cycle. I'm going to support Jillian, up against Doug Lamborn. That's the only situation. That's the the situation on the ground at this point. Hi, Dina. Deanna. Sorry, I have another friend whose name is Dina, and it's spelled very similarly. Um, so those are the rules that we're playing with. So I don't know that it's so much the way that things are set for Democrats or Republicans or independents from Colorado to Alabama to California. I think it's you play within the rules, and those are the rules that we're we're working with. So
I obviously got in a little late.
okay.
What did you talk about? Where do you go from here? Have you talked about that?
Yeah, so I think you were actually just coming in right as we were finishing that up. So part of establishing this campaign, we established a nonprofit. It's under the same name as the campaign, but we set up a 501c3 organization in Colorado. And dependent on how finances go with that nonprofit organization, our next step is to find other consensus candidates like we were trying to espouse with this campaign, right? So, other candidates that are interested in potentially opening up their campaign platform for voter review and modification, so that those representatives and not just U.S. representatives, but state representatives, state senators, U.S. House, U.S. Senate, candidates that are in representative roles where their job is to kind of bring things from the people, and that's what we were trying to do as a campaign. That's what we want to espouse. So I think that we're looking at converting that nonprofit organization over to an organization that can provide resources, including providing education and support for campaigns that are willing to take that step. And it goes back to, and Miguel, you're very familiar with this. One of the things that we wanted to do as a part of this campaign was to implement a new technology platform that allowed for people to, in real time, provide feedback to their representatives. And this wasn't just a pipe dream. Like, we had started to develop the base level, the MVP of what that would look like. How do you validate voters? How do you ensure that you're getting valid opinions? How do you build out ways to protect other people who are on the platform? How do you identify what somebody is saying when they comment on something online, which is a very complicated thing? So sentiment analysis and algorithmic pulls through the information that's being presented online so that we could actually glean meaningful and useful information. That was a platform that we were hoping to develop as a part of this campaign, and it was going to be developed as a part of a nonprofit that wasn't directly connected to the campaign. But we would be, sort of co-developing it, and this campaign would be the primary beneficiary of that technology to start off with. So I don't think that I'm done with that, right? I don't think that campaign pub crawl was ever fully realized, and it would have been potentially a massive game changer in terms of the way that we approach discussing things with our constituents. I want to help support anybody who wants to do that sort of process. It's not different from, a startup company that I advised many years ago around called World Pub Crawl that was helping to incentivize people by getting involved in their local communities through pubs and bars. It's the same stuff, and I don't think that we're done with that. And I think that's where we need to be focusing our energy and attention, probably for the next year, is to make sure that an organization like that could potentially have an impact in the community. Excuse me.
So, cheers. What is your personal next step from here, and how can those people like myself, obviously I've supported you, I've been there, and other people who want to support you, we're hoping 2022 we'll see your face on the front lines again. What do we do in the meantime to make sure that happens?
So we'll probably convert all of our social media stuff over to the new organization, and I imagine that we'll probably continue having things like campaign pub crawl. We'll probably, especially in the age of COVID, right? I think we're all kind of stuck with this technology. We'll probably continue on with that. Again, we'll probably shift that over to the nonprofit organization so that we can keep going forward. In terms of what I'm going to do with my life now, I mean, my company already has plans for me to leave. I mean, I'm leaving my company. That's kind of what we established. I had a conversation with the majority owner of my company yesterday. He was actually one of my major donors to the campaign, and I had a lot of tearful conversations yesterday, but that was one of those. And one of the questions, and I think this is actually when I started to tear up, was, and he was like, so does that mean you're coming back full time? And I said, I'm going to need a couple days to figure out what that looks like. I mean, as I told almost every single delegate that I had an extended conversation with going into the convention in the El Paso County Convention for the last couple of days, when I actually had a chance to talk to people, Colorado Springs is my home now. I mean, I moved here a year ago. I know I'm here for 10 years. This is the place where I want to do good. And right now I get to do good in a lot of places, in Florida, in Alaska, in Montana, Nevada, Colorado. That's all great. The work that I'm doing is fulfilling. It's great stuff. But, part of me thinks that I need to find my place in Colorado Springs and figure out what I'm going to do next. So, this is not the first time that I haven't known what I was going to do with my life. I moved out to Colorado with barely a promise of a job, and it's turned out pretty well for me so far. I think at this point we just gotta, figure out what that looks like, and as is true for this campaign, it has been the entire time. This is a listening campaign. You guys tell me. I want to hear what you guys want to do. I mean, I've got some ideas for what I want this nonprofit to do, but if you guys have some thoughts and you want to help us guide this organization, we want people to be involved. So I think more than anything, it's knowing where people are and what they want to do. So,
can I step in for a minute?
Yeah.
So for everyone listening out there, I just want to say, I've spent the last pretty much 20 years in the restaurant business. You learn to get the taste of people and who's sincere and who's not. I stepped aside and chose to support Ryan for a reason. And it was never more validated than one evening sitting in his living room. And I was asking, why are you running for Congress? And of course, he had polished answers at first, short little tidbits. And I was like, why are you running for Congress? And then he let down his guard and he spoke from his heart. And I was literally moved to the point of tears. Like, he really wants to make a difference. I'm even getting emotional right now just remembering it. Like, that's why I stood by his side. Ryan, that's why I'll be by your side. You got more to come, more to do. We'll make it happen.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we will.
So,
We will.
for everyone else out there listening, he's not looking for pedigree tags or people to prop him on the shoulder. He actually cares. So keep an eye out. We're not going anywhere. We're going to keep fighting because the future is important. That's all I got to say on that.
Look at you, Miguel. You're so soft. You're such a softie.
Shut up.
Yeah, and I'll say it one more time. If anybody's looking for staffers, any campaigns who are looking for staffers, you couldn't get somebody better than Miguel. Miguel's going to get to go back and watch this video and see how much I was talking about how awesome he was. I mean, but couldn't have asked for a better guy by my side.
Thank you.
You jumped into it with both feet and went as hard as we possibly could. I couldn't have asked for a better person. So I'm just sad that I wasn't able to make this like a 4, 5, 11 months, many years campaign, but you and I have talked about this. I want you involved with this nonprofit. We've got big things ahead of us, hopefully. We've got a lot of work to do to make this a better world for everybody. So, all right.
Yep. Let's change the world.
Should we call it the last virtual campaign pub crawl event? I'm so disappointed because I bought a logo just for virtual campaign pub crawl and it only lasted for like 3.
Well, the good part is you own the rights now, so we can bring it back whenever.
Just so, yeah, wait, there it is, right there. Campaign pub crawl out. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been a blast. We will all be in touch. I hope you guys have enjoyed this ride as much as I know that Miguel and I have. If you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. I think our email addresses will probably stick around for a little while. So it's still Ryan at RyanLucasForColorado.com, Miguel at RyanLucasForColorado.com. I don't know how long he's going to keep that on his phone, but you can also reach out to us at info@RyanLucasForColorado.com. We'll keep that stuff up for a little while longer. We're shutting everything else down. So we won't be doing any more StreamYard, which is what we use to be able to do Facebook and YouTube at the same time and do these fun little graphics. There will be some transitions. Keep an eye out for those. Definitely continue to follow us on Twitter. I will for sure keep the Twitter account open. We may end up changing the name of it, but For sure, keep that. If you're not following us, it's Ryan Lucas, the number 4 CO. That's the easiest way for me to make sure that I can be able to keep up with people and put out information. So definitely follow that Twitter account if nothing else. And we will see you all later. Thanks, Miguel. And thank you to all the supporters and donors. You guys are the best.